Ever buy a video game out of impulse because you were recommended to purchase it by a friend or influencer? Ever support a product because they defied market malevolence and cared more for the long-term support of the people over the short-term gain of profit? In my case, that's how I first learned about DARQ. The year was 2019. The fires burned hot against Epic Game Store exclusivity. Any video game developer that seemingly sold their soul and integrity to sell their games on that store alone for maximum profit were met with immediate and spiteful backlash. Some of them warranted, some of them unwarranted. Games like Ooblets, where the developers turned into condescending pieces of shit, or games like Outer Wilds, where promises were broken in being available for Steam backers. These are just a small fraction of examples that tormented gamers. But this issue isn't the main focus of this review. This isn't what I want to talk about. I want to talk about DARQ, and how the developer behind it gained a good clout and success by first turning down Epic exclusivity. DARQ is a unique video game, to say the least. Throughout my playthrough of this game on my main YouTube channel, I lovingly describe this game as if it were the bastard love child of Tim Burton and Christopher Nolan in video game format. That's because the art style of this game is remarkably Tim Burton-esque, and the gameplay may make you think of the movie Inception when you're walking on walls. That's what I've settled with anyway. It's my headcanon. It might be yours now too. I mean, look at the main protagonist. Look at his design. Would he fit right in with Jack Skellington in Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas? Anyway, DARQ is a horror action-adventure indie puzzle game developed by Untold Games, an ambitious title that took 4 years to make for a first-time developer. It released on Steam in August 2019 and had the backing of the people on its side. The story that made me interested in this game was the story that Young Yeah, a YouTuber that mostly covers gaming-related news, highlighted about this game and how the developer Untold Games turned down Epic exclusivity. On July 30th, 2019, Epic Store contacted Untold Games' sole developer, Vlad Marhulets, about an exclusivity agreement for DARQ. The offer was rejected before money was even discussed, because Vlad made it clear that exclusivity was not an option. He promised that the game would be available on Steam, which would have released next month at the time of this negotiation. If the deal was made, the game naturally wouldn't be available on Steam and would be exclusive to Epic Store for a period of time. The money gained from this deal, according to Vlad, would have been beneficial in the short term, but for a new studio, it would have most likely ruined the credibility of Untold Games, breaking a promise by denying purchase of a game on a particular platform. And Vlad was thinking long-term, caring more for a strong foundation that was formed by happy, supportive customers, not a flimsy one that was formed by accepting Epic exclusivity, especially because Epic contacted Untold Games about DARQ, which meant that they saw something special about this indie title. Nowadays, it seems as though this choice was the correct one. The game appears to be doing well if there's free DLC for it a year later, March 6th, 2020 to be specific, with another one on the way. Reception is unanimously positive, even lukewarm on Metacritic. Not only that, but this game has even won a few awards. More on that later, because now it's time to talk about what makes this game so distinct. The controls of DARQ are sufficient and adequate for the type of game that it is. You control Lloyd, the main protagonist of this game, with the arrow keys. You're able to sprint, crouch, access your inventory, and interact with the dark world that this poor boy is a part of. The gameplay centers around solving puzzles in real time and finding items that are scattered about the area to help you progress. You need one to accomplish the other, such as finding the battery to power a particular puzzle that runs on electricity, though in many cases, you require 2 or 3 or even a few items to make it out of the area with your life. And I mean with your life, because there are hostile threats in this game. Disturbing enemies often roam or lie dormant in the world of DARQ. You can't kill them either. You can only avoid them, either by running away from them or by sidestepping them, though there are instances where you'll have to confront some of these enemies. The sound design for this game is remarkably stalwart and definitely requires a pair of headphones to have you immerse yourself into this nightmare. Though keep in mind that this is a horror title, meaning that there will be loud, startling sounds to keep you nervous and alert. This game, outside of one instance, lacks background music, but that's not exactly necessary with DARQ, or with horror games in general. Their strengths come from how your emotions magnify every little sound that you hear in a video game, from the sounds of falling rain, to sparkling electricity, to your every footstep echoing across hollow rooms, or the uncanny groaning of a demented old lady in a wheelchair. Great, convincing ambience immerses you into the game, which makes the occasional jump scare all the more unsettling. And this game does have a few jump scares, much to my dismay. From here on out, I'm going to be discussing major spoilers, so if you haven't played this game yet, then what the hell is wrong with you? Anyway, the game begins with Lloyd, the main protagonist in a dream world that grows into a nightmare. It's quite clear that this world isn't the real world the instant that you get in bed. There are 7 total chapters in the main game, and for the sake of this review, I won't be mentioning the DLC. I'll save that for another day, when more DLC becomes available. Chapter 1 takes you to a seemingly abandoned building where you'll need 3 gears to exit. You will need to acquire these 3 gears throughout the world and then bring them back to a machine that will open a gate for you. As you search for them, you will learn how to wall walk and how to use this ability to solve puzzles that utilize this mechanic. Once the gears are found and brought to the machine, it's clear that there are enemies that you need to be wary of as you make a hasty exit. A solid introduction chapter overall. Chapter 2 takes you to a subway station where you need to stop the incoming rail cars in order to proceed through the end. It's in this puzzle where dream logic leads to an interesting use for the wristwatch item that you pick up. It's also where you'll learn about how to proceed through different areas by controlling where and in what direction you're wall walking. Chapter 3 takes you to a neighborhood at night, complete with pouring rain and switches that need to be pulled by finding dismembered arms. The overall layout of this area is in the shape of a cross, with a mechanism in the middle that Lloyd can jump and latch onto in order to change the perspective of the place. This is one of the more elaborate chapters in DARQ, as you'll need to complete several smaller puzzles and examine things from different angles to reach the goal. You'll also tackle a couple of timed puzzles that will require sprinting. Chapter 4 is probably the shortest or second shortest puzzle in DARQ. You teleport into a concert hall, complete with classical instruments and an empty auditorium. The overall goal is to exit the stage through a secret passage that you must connect wires to open. But to get to that, you have to grab a surprisingly docile cobra, find a light bulb, and wear a mask to blend in with the mannequins. Chapter 5 is actually my favorite zone, and contains one of the most ingenious puzzles in this game, as well as one of the most interesting locales. You basically board a train from the caboose, but it's more complicated than that as you make your way to the front. You'll find a passageway that leads to an underground area with bioluminescent mushrooms and an old lady in a wheelchair that will be more prominent as you continue this game. You'll need to acquire coal for the train, and have to channel your inner Naoto Uzumaki to avoid danger. But the best puzzle in the game involves a maze with a bar that you have to navigate to the middle. What makes this puzzle so ingenious? Because the moment that you begin this puzzle, the camera slowly rotates clockwise, away from the puzzle and to that same old woman in the wheelchair that you stole dynamite from. The music intensifies, alongside your uneasiness as you maneuver the object through the maze blindly, all while the enemy moves closer and closer. If you fail this puzzle, you'll get the only genuine in-your-face jump scare this game has. If you pass, the iron bars drop and you can breathe a sigh of relief as you finish Chapter 5. Chapter 6 begins with the same old lady approaching you as you teleport to a haunted hospital, where you take an elevator that's powered by 2 disembodied legs down to the infirmary. The legs run away and you have to locate them. You'll have to sneak past doctors and patients while manipulating a key that opens up pathways to take you to your goal. The way Chapter 6 ends is how the final Chapter 7 begins. The chapter basically abandons puzzles for a manic dash where Lloyd flees and avoids every single threat from the previous 6 chapters. Chapter 7 is also the most visually and orally impressive chapter in the game. Walls are crumbling, wheelchairs are squeaking, guns are shooting, wood is creaking. It's intense and exhilarating. Through trial and error, you'll make your way to a giant door that opens and welcomes you in with white lights. And once you step inside, you hear the sounds of new life being born. Throughout my playthrough of DARQ, there were only two main things about this game that bothered me. The first of these is a general one that many who have purchased and played this game will agree on. This game is honestly pretty short. You can beat this game in a couple of hours, or even under an hour if you replay this game and know how to breeze through each puzzle with next to no backtracking. This matters to some people who may be discouraged by the fact they have to pay $20 full price for a game that they can beat in an afternoon. Still, despite DARQ's disappointing brevity, it's rich in atmosphere and lovingly crafted, and the free DLC will have you returning for more. The second problem that I have with this game are the 6 secret dream journal pages that you can find in the first 6 chapters of the game. Finding them isn't too difficult, as long as you make sure that you examine each area from every single different perspective. The problem is the reward that you get for finding all 6. Outside of Steam achievements, you get nothing. It would have been nice to get a concept art gallery, or even a behind-the-scenes narration of this game as you play through it again. But you don't get anything like that. It's a missed opportunity, and the biggest flaw that I can think of with DARQ. Fortunately, DARQ is far from flawed. It's a successful video game that has been nominated for awards, particularly for its art and sound design. It's even won some, and against AAA titles too. The last indie game that I can think of to compete with the big boys was Undertale. That's high praise right there. DARQ is a memorable, mesmerizing, ingeniously terrifying indie title that has put Untold games on the map, and alongside the upcoming DLC for DARQ, I look forward to seeing what Lad does next.
If you said no, I need to bite your face off. Go nom 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 all over your face.